They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everyone. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time out of your day, week, month, life to spend it with us. We're going to try to make it worth your while. This is Season 2, Episode 17. You can go and listen to all of our previous episodes on the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you find podcasts, you can find us there. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at The Benchwarmers Podcast, at The BW Pod on Twitter, or simply go to thebenchwarmers.com for all things just mentioned. Big show coming up, a lot of football. It's right around the corner, and honestly, we could not be more excited. Our weekly football fix is ready to go. We're going to be ranking and rating the AFC South and the NFC West. NFC West, probably the best division of football. That was not an easy one to do. Some NFL news and notes actually coming up in just a few minutes here. Had very interesting headlines coming up that are unexpected. Some of them are a little unexpected. I was surprised to read a couple of those, so we'll get to those in just a sec. But to kick off the show, Jose, I want to start with some NBA stuff, actually. First and foremost, I want to say happy birthday to not only Kobe Bryant, who would have been 43 today, but I just learned right before we started the show that it's also your son's 4th birthday. So I want to officially wish him a happy birthday as well.
Thank you very much. Yes, it was a great birthday weekend, and I can't believe we've survived till age 4, but here we are.
Did you guys do anything fun?
Well,
I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was fun. We actually rented a bouncy house.
Nice. Okay.
And put it in our backyard, and he was jumping around in it. That was pretty cool. And then we got him perhaps the coolest and most awesome looking bat cave that I've ever seen. It's like it's interactive. It's about as big as he is, and there's all sorts of sounds and figures. Pretty awesome, fun toy, and he had a great time playing.
That's nice. Yeah, I remember, I think it was my 3rd birthday. I think my mom got us a pony. I did like a pony ride. And I remember halfway through the day, it started hailing like golf ball size bits of hail. I still don't remember. I remember thinking, I hope the horse is okay. And I don't actually remember what ever happened to the horse. I should ask her. But it's funny. Those early birthdays are always kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just talking about Kobe for a sec. Yeah, what hasn't been said about him? 2020 was a rough year for the entire world, and it kicked off with the tragic event that happened to Kobe, his daughter, and those other 7 people. I think that were 8 people that were on the helicopter early in 2020, and that kind of just set the tone for a really, really rough year all around. And you start thinking back to Kobe. I just remember, obviously, the 81 points, the championships. All that was cool, but the one memory for whatever reason that came to me was thinking back. It was like a early 2000s All-Star game, and Kobe Bryant was guarding LeBron James, and I remember watching him. LeBron had the ball, and Kobe went rushing up to him, and he's yelling at LeBron, "Shoot it, shoot it, shoot it!" And then it felt like in that moment. I was like, wow, this guy understands, he get his awareness. He's always been an intelligent guy. He's always been kind of super high basketball IQ, but probably regular IQ as well. And it just felt like in that moment, he understood what was happening. These were 2 of the greatest players ever, playing against each other at the same time. That's Magic Larry Bird status. And he wanted to give everybody a show. And I think LeBron ended up passing the ball, which I remember being kind of bummed about, but I guess that's sort of status quo for LeBron.
That's what he does.
Yeah. Did you have any particular memory that stands out from Kobe?
I feel like I'm getting my dates incorrect here, but I just really just the 2005-2006 season, and in the playoffs, the 05-06 season, that's where Kobe averaged 35 points a game. And it was really in that year, it was against the Suns, and actually it was a series they ended up losing in 7. But I just remember watching Kobe Bryant just make shots that I never saw anyone make before. Just like the difficulty level. And that's really what I take away. When I think about the greatness of Kobe Bryant, he was a great scorer, but he was just really good at making shots that other people can't make. Yeah. And he showed it really well in that series and in that season.
Yeah, and that Laker team, it's hard to not wonder, that him and Shaquille O'Neal, how many more championships they could have won if they just could get along. It seemed like off the court they got along, but I know Kobe, he had a lot of quotes where he was just getting upset with Shaq for basically calling him lazy, and saying he had a poor work ethic, which I guess compared to anybody, compared to Kobe, Kobe compared to anybody has a poor work ethic, but Shaq was notorious for kind of having other interests outside of basketball. But that leads us into our next and final NBA topic of the show. Speaking of teams that could have done more, Kevin Durant and Draymond Green had a little exchange. Draymond Green apparently is the host of a new podcast called Chips, and this was from Bleacher Report. They kind of broke down the episode. Draymond Green decided, I guess for whatever reason, maybe it was a clickbait, and I guess it worked. He asked Kevin Durant why he left the Warriors, and it stems from an argument they had in the regular season against the Clippers. On the court, it flowed over into off court, and then it just became this whole thing. The media picked up on it, and it was a little needless. I think it's needless to say it got blown out of proportion, as most things do with media. But Green asked Durant about it, and Durant said, quote, "It wasn't the argument. It was the way that everybody, Steve Kerr, acted like it didn't happen. Bob Myers, their general manager, tried to just discipline you," meaning Draymond, "and think that would put a mask over everything. I really felt like it was such a big situation for us as a group. The first time we went through something like that, we had to get that bleep all out." And Green said in response, quote, "In my opinion, they effed this up," unquote.
So I think the reason that I think the reason that Draymond Green did this was because he wanted attention.
Yes.
He wanted attention on his podcast. I think a lot of players in the NFL and NBA nowadays, once they start getting to mid-career, sometimes even earlier than that, they start planting the seeds for their post, professional sports life. And Draymond Green starts a podcast. Hey, how can I get everyone talking about my podcast? Oh, let me invite Kevin Durant, who we famously had this fight with. Oh, let me have him say something that everyone else is going to be talking about like we are on our podcast. I think that's really what it boiled down to, that he wanted something explosive, something that was going to get people talking, and he succeeded.
Yeah, the only problem, I think, is that while it's, the short term, yes, you get this great audience and this great feedback and reaction. But in long term, I mean, Draymond Green's still on the Golden State Warriors. Kevin Durant isn't there anymore. So Kevin Durant has nothing to worry about. It's just like, yeah, this is how I felt like what happened, and that's what happened. Draymond Green has to go to work on Monday and say, "Oh, hey, Steve, what's up, coach? What's the matter? Oh, that? Oh, no, that was, I was just talking." How do you do that? I don't know how, unless this is a ploy to be part of the Nets. Maybe he's auditioning and kind of auditioning with Kevin Durant to get him to recruit him for a change to the Nets. Otherwise, it's not the smartest idea.
It really isn't the smartest idea. And I think Draymond Green, and maybe he feels differently about it, but I think Draymond Green is a player who he's one of these kind of a system player. I'm not saying that he's a bad, he would still be a good player on another team, but I think him being on the Warriors has elevated his status a little bit more than it would be, say, if he was on the Knicks, per se.
Yeah.
And you're probably better off staying with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this plays out. We'll see if Draymond is on the Warriors next season. I don't know. It's just it feels like there's a bigger play here rather than just rehashing old wounds.
It is odd. It is certainly odd.
Yeah. Speaking of odd, something that caught my attention, and switching over to the NFL for a second, Larry Fitzgerald apparently is not playing this season. I did not know that until just earlier today. Apparently he was on Sirius XM NFL's radio. It's called Let's Go with Jim Gray. And he said, quote, he just doesn't feel the urge to play right now. And so he said he's not retiring, but he's not planning on playing. So very, very kind of ambiguous comments. And it just seems interesting that, I mean, Larry Fitzgerald, he's closing in on Jerry Rice, some of Jerry Rice's records, which are not an easy thing to do. He is second all-time in receptions. He's got 1,432 receptions. Jerry Rice has 1,549. So another 2 average seasons, 1 spectacular season. Fitz could pass Jerry Rice for that. And it's just, I mean, I guess it's easier for me to say, but I don't know. It just seems strange that now that he's finally on, maybe the second best team he's ever been on, Kurt Warner Super Bowl team being the first. This team is talented. There's not going to be a lot that's expected of him. I don't know why he would, unless he just is really just over it. I don't know. I was very surprised.
When I've listened to other athletes talk about, coming back for a season, it seems like it's, if you could just show up and play the games, that would be great. But it seems like it's the in-between. It's the practices and the preparation and the flying all over the place and being away from your family and all the different things. And Larry Fitzgerald is not going to have a prominent role in this team. He might not even be a number 3 receiver on this team. It's probably likely a number 4 at best receiver on this team. Maybe he just doesn't want to come back for a token role, basically, where, hey, yeah, fine, you can be our 53rd man. Like, maybe that's just not what he's into right now at this stage of his career. His body's probably hurting. Didn't have a great year last year. Didn't have a great year before that either. Going into year 18, I think I can sympathize a little bit and say, like, maybe he just doesn't want to get hit anymore. Maybe he just doesn't want to be tackled anymore. He's been hit probably hundreds of times. I think whether he passes Jerry Rice or not, he's at least second. He's second or third on the list, depending on how you on all-time wide receiver, depending on how you feel about a guy like Randy Moss or Terrell Owens. Outside of those two, I don't even know who would even be in discussion for second all-time, unless I'm just Calvin Johnson, I suppose, as well. But either way, he's in that second tier of wide receiver right now, and I don't think him getting an extra 100 receptions and passing Jerry Rice would catapult him into, now he's all alone by himself at number 2. Now, the chance to get a Super Bowl does seem like maybe that would be something that would push him. But I mean, do we really think the Cardinals have a serious chance to win the Super Bowl this year? I guess we'll find out with our NFC West preview.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's exactly where I was going to go with that. Fitz, I mean, the only thing I'll say is just, he's not going to catch Jerry Rice in career receiving yards. Jerry Rice is at 22,895. Larry Fitzgerald is second all time with 17,492. The next active player on the list isn't until number 20, Julio Jones, with 12,896. So all Fitz would do is just kind of pile on and make sure stays at that number 2 spot for a while. In terms of touchdowns, Jerry Rice again, number 1, 197 receiving touchdowns. Fitz is 6th all time with 121. So he could climb up that list. He's only next up. 5th is Marvin Harrison, 128. So he could get 7 touchdowns this year. 9 would tie him with Chris Carter, and then after that it would be a little harder because Terrell Owens is 153, Randy Moss 156. So it just feels like Larry Fitzgerald to me is like the Kevin Garnett of the NFL. He's just this great, great player who just was surrounded by just dog poop all his career, with few exceptions. And then finally, Kevin Garnett was allowed. He just said, "Look, I got to go. I've been here forever. I want to go win it. I want to see what it feels like to win." And no one in Minnesota really gave him any flack for it. They're like, "Yeah, man, we get it. You put in your time and you tried. You did your best." I think Fitzgerald, I could see him maybe mid-season just calling up, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers and saying, "Hey, can I just tag along?" Kind of like Shady McCoy, what he did with the Buccaneers last year. He was basically just a bench player. He didn't really play at all, but he still got a ring.
Yeah, I mean it's. I mean we'll get into it. It's part of the reason why I think championships are overemphasized a little bit because of what you just said. Larry Fitzgerald, one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, and he doesn't have any championships to show for it because he's been playing with trash teams for most of his career. I don't think him coming back to the Cardinals would be leading into a Super Bowl, and I'm not sure that Larry Fitzgerald wants to take a role as a tag along. He doesn't seem like that type of player. He seems like a more prideful type of guy, in my opinion, that he wants to take some tag along role where he didn't really actually contribute to the championship.
Well, when Larry Fitzgerald started playing back in 2003, most of the rookie quarterbacks were toddlers coming into this season, and we got to see some glances in this first couple preseason games. And out of the five big rookie quarterback names, Jose, I'm curious how you would rank them in terms of first impressions. So Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. And from what you've seen thus far, obviously it's a ridiculously small sample size, and we've barely seen any of them play. But just kind of the eye test right off the bat.
Okay, so I don't want to sound like a homer here. Everyone knows I'm a 49ers fan, but Lou, I am in love. I am deeply in love. I have a bromance for Trey Lance. It is
good.
I was watching the game on Sunday night. It was one of the rare opportunities where you get to see two starting quarterbacks play for a long time, and so I just looking at Jimmy Garoppolo, just really boring, pedestrian, just nothing. Dump offs, check downs. Trey Lance comes there is firing like lasers at everyone. I was like, I kind of want to tell him, maybe tone down the arm strength, just cannon throws. And in one quarter, I could see the entire vision. I can see why they traded up for him. He looks like he has everything. And I was probably just getting so excited being a 49ers fan. I was just it could have been week 6 in the NFL. That's how fired up I was watching last night or on Sunday night. Trey Lance to me looks incredible. He should be the starter week 1. No question in my mind. Jimmy Garoppolo, we've already seen the ceiling, and the ceiling is dropping. The sky is the limit with Trey Lance. Number 2 for me is Zach Wilson. I was really, really impressed with what I saw against him this past week against the Green Bay Packers. Really just, I know it's against backup or, whatever, not the starting rosters everywhere, but really just made all the throws. Every throw you'd want to see a player pick number 2 overall make, he was making them. And so to me, it's close between Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. My 49er fan in me is going to put Trey Lance number 1, Zach Wilson probably second, and then honestly, I've been more impressed with also Justin Fields would probably be my third. I liked what I saw in week 1, and not as much in week 2, but I still am liking what I'm seeing. And then Mac Jones I actually would say Trevor Lawrence has looked the worst out of all the rookies so far, although he probably has the worst team. So that goes for saying that probably has an impact on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Trey Lance looked pretty good. He made a throw across his body. I think he was rolling left and he threw back right, and it was a bomb. I mean, it was like a 30-yard pass, and it just hit the receiver in stride. And I was like, wow, that's one of those passes they tell you you're not supposed to make. You're not supposed to even try. Never mind make. And he just nailed it.
He looked like Brett Favre out there. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm just getting excited.
Less interceptions, but yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And, so it's going to sound surprising, but I'd put Trey Lance up there in terms of all around, because I think in terms of the package that he has now, Kyle Shanahan kind of has this brand new toy that basically has almost no limitations from a physical standpoint. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do with that. But on the other side of that scale, Mac Jones, to me, I was watching Mac Jones, and he just looks really good. And the thing is that the Patriots don't seem like they're asking a lot of him. He was 13-19 in week 2 for 146 yards, like a 91 QB rating. He just is a pocket passer. He's an accurate pocket passer. And I think, Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick can make that work pretty well. Justin Fields would be next for me. I think he didn't look great in week 2, but just the energy that he brings, his size. I think he was what did I see? The third fastest ball carrier. Never mind, not quarterback. The third fastest guy to carry a ball in week 2 was Justin Fields. And
wow.
Yeah. I mean, granted, there was some, this wasn't like Tyreek Hill wasn't playing or anything, but still, that's still pretty good to be a quarterback and be one of the fastest people on the field any given week ever. So he looked good. Trevor Lawrence looks like he's going to be fine. I think the Jags still have a lot of rebuilding to do, but as long as he doesn't, get the David Carr treatment this season and just get sacked beyond belief, I think he'll be okay. And he looks like he's got some real, the hype could be for real. And then Zach Wilson, while he did have a great game, I'm just worried. I just the Jets. I'm just afraid this guy's going to get hurt. They just don't look. The team itself just does not look prepared, and there's no real backup to help guide him. And it just maybe it's more situational than him per se, but I worry about him a lot.
Yeah, and that was my with Zach Wilson. I have to keep telling myself it doesn't matter that what the Jets used to be or what because it's like you and I invented. Well, maybe we didn't invent it, but we used to talk about Jets fever when we were 16 years old. Like when we'd be like, hey, if you go to the Jets, you're just not good. Yeah, we're just not good. And I'm not. I don't want to be judging. I don't want to be judging him. Under the lens of he's on the Jets, so he's going to be trash. From what I've seen, he's looked good, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean I hope that he does well. I do. Some injury news. Darrell Henderson for the Rams injured his thumb. Jerick McKinnon is now slated to be their starting running back if Henderson can't come back, but it looks like he might be okay. They lost Cam Akers earlier in the preseason. He'll be out. I think he's out for the year. And so interesting news there. Another running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Chiefs, sprains his ankle. His timetable is still up in the air, but it looks like he should make a full recovery to open the season, which led me to thinking, Jose, we're gonna do this quickly because we have to get to the rest of the show, but I'm gonna read off who the starters for each team, running back wise, and I just on a scale 1 to 5, what your confidence level is in that running back
for fantasy,
for either or.
Okay. All right.
Just confidence level. I mean, we could
also do a grouping. I'll have have an aggregate score, fantasy and NFL.
Yeah. I mean, just production wise to live up to their potential this season.
All right.
So here we're just running down Devin Singletary for the Bills.
Give me a 2.
I agree. Myles Gaskin for the Dolphins.
2.
I'll give him a 3. I think he looks okay. The Patriots, I think right now it's slated to be Damian Harris. Sony Michel's kind of a 1A, but we'll say Damian Harris.
I like Damian Harris. I think he's looked good when he's been healthy, so I'll say a 3.
I'll say a 3 as well. Tevin Coleman for the Jets.
I don't know what potential he'd actually have to live up to, but I'm going to say a 1 here because I don't think
I believe that's correct, yes. J.K. Dobbins for the Ravens.
This is an interesting one. I'm going to say 3. Yeah, like a 3.5 there. I'm not sure how much kind of volume he's going to get in the passing game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2. He looks okay, but I don't know. I don't have a good vibe. Joe Mixon for the Bengals.
I love Joe Mixon more than most people, so I'm going to say a 4 here. I think he's basically in that second tier of amazing running backs.
Yeah, he got hurt last year, but I think it was a kind of a fluke thing. So I'm going to agree with you. I think a 4. Nick Chubb for the Browns.
I love Nick Chubb. He's one of the best runners in the game. I'm going to say a 5. He's great.
Najee Harris for the Steelers.
Rookie running backs in recent years have had a good track record. I'm going to give him a 4 here. I think he's on the right team, and he looked great in college. Looked good so far in preseason, so I'm going to say a 4.
I'm going to give him a 3 just because James Conner was a good running back for one season and then fell off the earth last season. And the Steelers lost 2 of their starting offensive linemen. So I'll give him a 3 because I think he does look like he has talent, but it's questionable on that team.
Yeah, it's fair.
Mark Ingram and or Philip Lindsay for the Texans.
0.5. No, I was just joking. 1. That's gonna be a 1.
The Texans should just stop. Just slate them in for the first pick next season.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor for the Colts.
I'm a big Jonathan Taylor fan. I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go 5. I really believe it behind that offensive line. I like Jonathan Taylor, so I'm gonna go 5.
I'm gonna go 3 only because Naheem Hines is still there, and they kind of do almost a running back by committee. So I'm not sure if Jonathan Taylor's gonna be able to separate himself that much from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, you've convinced me. I'm going down to a 4.
Right now, James Robinson is the starter for the Jaguars. Travis Etienne is there, but as of right now, it's James Robinson's job.
Yeah, it's going to be probably a running back by committee, and as a result, I'm going to go with a 3. It's just you can only do so much when you don't get the touches.
I think it's going to be a 4 for James Robinson for me. Etienne looks like he's going to be a third down back maybe, or just a pass catcher more than every down back. And Robinson proved last season that even with nothing else going on, he can still run the ball pretty effectively.
Absolutely.
Derrick Henry for the Titans.
5. No need to say anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Melvin Gordon for the Broncos.
This is a tough one. I think I'm going to go with a 2. Yeah. Somewhere between a 2 and a 3. I think he still has something, but I'm not sure. Especially they did draft Javonte Williams in the second round, so I think he's got a short leash.
The aforementioned Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Chiefs.
Well, before the injury, I would have probably said a 4. Now with the injury news and having it happen again from last year too, I'm going to go with a 3. Just don't feel that confident he can stay healthy the whole year.
I think 3 is about right. Josh Jacobs for the Raiders.
This is another tough one because they spent a lot of money to bring in Kenyon Drake. I'm going to go with a 3. I think that move shows a lack of confidence in Josh Jacobs, and so if they don't believe in him, why should I? 3.
I agree. Austin Eckler for the Chargers.
I'm going to go with a 4. I think Austin Eckler is pretty talented, and he's maybe a little underrated. I'm not sure about his in-between the tackles ability, but as an overall running back, he's very good. 4.
Ezekiel Elliott for my Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I think a few years ago I probably would have said a 5. I think it's probably a 4 now, and I need to see him do something this year. Last year they were decimated by injuries, so I'm giving him a bit of a pass. I'm just going to say a 4 with an asterisk.
That's fair. Saquon Barkley, New York Giants.
It's very similar. Because I feel like he has so much talent. I'm going to say a 4.
I'm going 2. I'm giving him a 2.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go 4. Okay, why are you saying 2? I'm sorry.
Just injuries. It just proved. Yeah, I need to see it before I believe it anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
Miles Sanders for the Eagles.
I'm probably going to go with a 3. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. So.
Antonio Gibson for the Washington football team.
It's one of the young running backs I'm most excited about in the NFL this year. I'm going to go with a 4. I think he's incredible.
I agree. He looks good. David Montgomery for the Bears.
Another underrated running back. I think I would go with a 3 because I don't think he has the ceiling of some of these other players, but he is a very good running back who's going to get volume.
I agree. DeAndre Swift for the Lions.
I like him less than other people's team too. I don't see a path to him having a great year on a terrible Lions team. So I'm going to go with a 2, even though that might fall below his talent level.
Yeah, I think he's talented, and I think that he'll be able to start the majority of the year, but he is on the Lions, so it drops him down a point. So I'll give him a 3. Aaron Jones, Green Bay Packers.
Aaron Jones gets a 5. He's one of the best running backs in the game. Has been that for the last 3 years. I see no reason why during the last dance season with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams that we should expect him to have a down year suddenly.
I'm going to give him a 4 just because of the A.J. Dillon
factor.
Enough. Dalvin Cook, Minnesota Vikings.
5.5. He's amazing.
Yes, exactly. Mike Davis for the Falcons. Or Cordell Patterson. They're both kind of in the number 1 slot. But
here's a guy who's got the opportunity, but not really the talent level. I'm going to go with a 2. I just don't think Mike Davis is very good. And I don't think Cordell Patterson is very good either, but they'll get enough volume to do something.
Christian McCaffrey.
5.
Panthers.
He's amazing. I mean, you do worry about him coming back from injury, but I believe in the talent that I saw, and I think that the injury was just a fluke. He's been healthy for most of his career so far, so I'm going to say 5.
I'm going to give him a 4 just because I'm nervous. He makes me nervous.
Fair.
Alvin Kamara for the Saints.
I think if Drew Brees were still there, I would probably go with a 5, and I'm still inclined to go with a 5 because he's ridiculously efficient and talented. But I'm going to go with a 4 because I think the offense is a little bit capped this year.
I mean, as far as my confidence in him, I'm giving him a 5.
Fair.
Ronald Jones for the Buccaneers.
He gets like a 2. I mean, it's somewhere between a 2 and a 3. He's not going to get enough touches, and they obviously don't have a lot of confidence in him. Bringing in Giovanni Bernard of all people. So a 2.
I would give him a 3. I think it's running back by committee.
Yeah, fair.
Arizona Cardinals, Chase Edmonds.
I think he's a pretty talented running back, and I expect him to have a great year. I'm going to go with a 3.
I would go 3. The aforementioned Darrell Henderson, potentially, for the Rams. Let's assume he comes back.
Yeah, if he's back and healthy, I'll give him a 3 just because that's a great offense, and then you got to probably score touchdowns accidentally on a great offense.
For your 49ers, I don't even know who this. I guess Wayne Gallman or Raheem Mostert, whichever one you think.
Maybe
Gallman. Trey Sermon. I don't know who.
It's going to be Raheem. It's going to be Raheem Mostert to start the year.
It should be.
I like Raheem Mostert. I want to see what he can do if he can stay healthy for a full year. But the fact that he really hasn't shown the capability to be a true, workhorse type back, I think his ceiling is capped at a 3, basically, until it's otherwise notified.
I think you're right. Finally, the Seattle Seahawks, Chris Carson.
He's a player I like more than other people tend to. I think he's somewhere between a 3 and a 4. In my opinion, he probably could be a 4 if everything goes right. But if I were betting, it'd probably be like a 3. I could see him getting like 1,100, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. Decent season. Not elite.
I give him a 3. And so, that's our little running back game. It's a confidence scale. You can use that to hopefully help you out with some fantasy, because I'm sure that there's at least 1 or 2 starting running backs that you were not aware of. I'm not going to say who it was, but there was 2 names on there where I was like, I didn't realize that they were going to be slated to be the starter. And so hopefully that helps for the rest of you as well. Last news, Carson Wentz looks like he's on track for the season opener. That's good news. I mean, there's not much to say. Hopefully he's optimistic. So are we. And that leads us into we're going to take a break, and that leads us into our next bit. We're going to rank and rate the AFC South. NFC West is going to be a little bit later, but Carson Wentz and the Colts are going to be rated and ranked coming up next. So stick around. This is the Benchwarmers Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you think or know you had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and after 24 hours with no fever without fever-reducing medication, and after other symptoms have improved. If you have tested positive for COVID-19 and you had no symptoms, you can be around others 10 days after you got tested for COVID-19. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers Podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz, and this is still the Benchwarmers Podcast. Hopefully, you're following us along on either the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or go to thebenchwarmers.com. This is Season 2, Episode 17. Touched on a lot of things in the opening segment, some NFL news notes, headlines. Happy birthday to Kobe Bryant, Draymond Green, and KD making some noise. Just played a little running back confidence scale game, which was fun for fantasy and regular season purposes. And now it's our weekly football fix. We are going to rank. We've been ranking and rating each teams in every division. We're doing 2 divisions because we're running out of time because the season's right around the corner. So this week, coming up, we're going to be doing the NFC West in just a minute. But first, the AFC South, this feels like might be the easiest one that we've done, just because I really only had to make one decision. So without further ado, Jose, number one for going into the 2021 season, what team is the best team in the division?
To me, it's the Titans.
Yep.
I don't think the Titans are Super Bowl contenders. I do think they're clearly the best team. Tannehill, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 3,800 yards last season. Say what you will about Tannehill's upside being limited, but those are pretty strong numbers, and numbers that, frankly, the Carson Wentz, probably the second best quarterback in that division, has never hit those numbers before. And we already know about how good Derrick Henry is. They added Julio Jones to go alongside A.J. Brown. This offense should be good. My main area would be of concern with them would be on the defense. Last year, they gave up almost 400 yards and almost 30 points per game. They don't have the type of offense that can consistently overcome that type of defense. They did invest heavily in defense and free agency. I don't think that really moves the meter that much for them to make them elite defense. So I think they're first in the division. I think their upside's a bit capped.
So the problem here for me was, because I think you're right, the Titans defense is their weak point, which is interesting and kind of a little bit surprising considering how they kind of started off this new legacy with. But the addition of A.J. Brown, A.J. Brown's been there. He's a monster. Julio Jones. They have a good offense. Derrick Henry, obviously probably one of the best 2 running backs in the league, 3 running backs in the league, depending on how you are looking at it. But overall, I do think that the Colts are a better team, top to bottom. And they're especially because their defense, Colts defense is on, at least on paper, is way better than the Titans. Xavier Rhodes in the backfield. Obviously, they have Darius Leonard, who just got a monster deal. DeForest Buckner. They have Zaire Franklin. They have a lot of guys that are pretty notable. The issue just comes down to quarterback play. And I don't trust Carson Wentz. And if Carson Wentz goes out, Jacob Eason or Sam Ehlinger aren't exactly inspiring me with confidence. So, you could say this, Ryan Tannehill, I guess if he goes down, I don't know about, was it Logan Woodside or
I have no idea. I was like, that is really impressive that you knew that.
Matt Barkley, I think, is on that team. So,
wow.
But Tannehill has been proven to be a bit more durable than Carson Wentz. So that kind of was what changed the tide. I think the Tennessee Titans, just by virtue of having consistent starting quarterback play from their starting quarterback, is what's going to make them win this division.
Yeah, I just want to counter a little bit about the Colts, and I guess we both have them in second because we both actually watch football. But I kind of disagree that they're yes, their defense, the Colts defense, is definitely much better than the Titans defense, but I think the Titans offense is much better than the Colts offense. I was just gushing about Jonathan Taylor, but we haven't seen T.Y. Hilton really have an elite season in quite some time. We haven't seen Paris Campbell hasn't even really been able to stay healthy. But Michael Pittman is a nice player who's unproven. It looks like he could be good, but we haven't really seen it. There's not a lot of players on their offense that really have an established track record of being good. They all have promise, they all have potential, but very few of them have admitted. And the one issue that I have, you look at this team last year, they were 11-5. The Colts were 11-5 last year with Phillip Rivers at quarterback. There's nothing I've seen that makes me think they'll be any better this year, even with Carson Wentz.
I think that the Colts, from top to bottom, T.Y. Hilton is a good wide receiver. He's been kind of up and down, but then again, Phillip Rivers, Phillip Rivers is a decent quarterback for, whatever he was, 38, 39 years old. Before that, who did Jacoby Brissett? He was great when he had Andrew Luck throwing to him, but then since then he's had basically a bunch of has-beens or never was. So I think he has potential with a good functioning quarterback. Michael Pittman, like you said, looks really good. And that offensive line, Quentin Nelson is the best guard in the league.
Yes.
So if you can run the ball, you take so much pressure off of that quarterback and those wide receivers, and that frees them up because the defense has to stay honest. That maybe on paper, the Titans from a talent standpoint are much more talented, but I think in terms of effectiveness, I think the Colts are just this. There's just their floor is so much higher.
Yeah, I see. I don't know. I think we're just looking at these teams differently. I think the Colts actually have a lower floor than the Titans, and perhaps they have a higher ceiling. Maybe I could go with you there because of their defense, because of their offensive line, because if Carson Wentz is actually better than what we saw from Phillip Rivers last year, which I don't think is any sort of certainty. We haven't seen Carson Wentz really have a good season since 2017. So, if everything clicks out and works out, the Colts probably do have a higher overall ceiling, considering I was calling them dark horse Super Bowl contenders just a year ago. So they probably do have the potential to be good. If I had to put money on it, I'm picking the Titans ahead.
Yeah, so am I. But I think that it's going to be pretty close. If Carson Wentz is healthy or was projected to be completely healthy, I think I would have picked him as number one, but we'll see. So the big question is, who is your number 3 team in the AFC South? Because this is where it starts to get a little murky.
Yeah, I don't know. So to me, it's the Jaguars.
It has to be the Jaguars.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, please don't say Texans.
Well, look, I was looking at the Texans, looking at the Jaguars. Look at the Texans. Look, neither team is very talented. The biggest difference between the Jaguars and the Texans, to me, is hope. The Jaguars are a terrible team. So they did draft Trevor Lawrence, who's this generational talent, best we've seen in 20, 30 years. Travis Etienne, the first round pick, he looked great in college. And then they do have second-year players returning. James Robinson was great last year. Laviska Shenault had a lot of promise, but didn't really stay healthy for the whole season. There is at least some hope for them to progress this year. I'm not expecting much, but they should be considerably better than the Texans.
I mean, everybody's going to be considerably better than the Texans. The Jaguars are on the upswing. Trevor Lawrence is going to be a very good quarterback, possibly great quarterback. They have Gardner Minshew, who is a starting caliber, maybe a low-end starter, but he's still there if anything happens. James Robinson, we saw, he broke the record for, I think, undrafted running backs and rookie running backs last season, so he's pretty good. DJ Shark, Marvin Jones Jr., who I forgot that they signed, they look like they have a chance. And Urban Meyer is a winning coach. I think in his entire collegiate career, I think he's lost 9 games. Yeah. So if the Jaguars only lose 9 games this season, it's going to be a big time win for them. So, and then the Texans. What can you say about the Texans? Tyrod Taylor, Phillip Lindsay, Brandon Cooks, Chris Connolly, Kiki QT, and that's your starters. What else? Brandon Cooks, get out of there, man. What are you doing? Just go. He's still. He's not great, but he still has enough talent where he could be an asset somewhere else.
Go join the Packers. Go join the Packers. Yeah. In fact, listen, Texans, trade Brandon Cooks to the Packers. Get something. As if they're listening to the show. No, there's really nothing. I literally have my note here. Is it possible for a team to be less talented than the Texans? I don't even know. It's just awful. I don't want to drive a dagger through them. It's just a bad year, and they have to. This is what happens when you haven't had a draft first round pick since 2019. You get the Texans.
Yeah, and they made that big time deal with the Dolphins to get Laramie Tunsil, and then it's just, they lost. J.J. Watt is gone. Whitney Merciless is still there, but it just feels like it just doesn't matter. This team without Deshaun Watson, who had a great season last year.
Yeah.
But we don't even know if he's going to play. First of all, legally, we don't know if he's going to be allowed to play. Then from the NFL standpoint, we don't know if he's going to be put on the commissioner's exempt list, even if he's not necessarily in legal trouble. And then beyond all that, remember before all that started, he said that he wanted to leave the Texans. So you have a guy who doesn't even want to be there, even if he's able to, which is already a mountain of obstacles to even say that he's allowed to play, at which point he might just say, I don't want to. So I'm not sure what the Texans are doing, but you gotta come on, like get out.
This is
it can't be this bad.
They're at the beginning, like it's just like the very, very, very beginning of a rebuild, like the year before you can get to start rebuilding, because you should have been rebuilding this year, but you gave away all your draft picks, so you had to wait a year. That's how bad it is.
Over under.
Oh my goodness.
Houston Texans wins. I'm going to set it at 1.5.
I'm going under.
I think so too.
Going under.
I think so
I can't pick them to win 2 games. Like, I need to look at the schedule and be like, oh, that's a win. Like, are they playing the Jets 3 times? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And even then, because the Jets
I can read off the schedule if you want. If you want to play this game right now,
let's just go ahead really quickly. Let's just see if we can fire through this.
Just keep tallies of how many wins we have here. So week 1 is Jacksonville.
That's probably a loss, but that's a loss.
I think that's a winnable game. But I think it's gonna be a loss.
Yeah.
Then Cleveland Browns loss. Carolina Panthers loss. Buffalo Bills loss.
Yep.
New England Patriots crazy loss. Yep. Indianapolis Colts loss. Arizona Cardinals loss. Los Angeles Rams big loss.
Yeah. Miami
Miami Dolphins loss. Titans loss. New York Jets.
So far we have 2 winnable games. We have the Jets and we have the Jaguars. I'm going to just put these in a separate spot. Call it winnable.
They play the Colts again. Loss. They play the Seahawks. Loss. They do play the Jaguars again. So question mark.
Another winnable game. All right.
The Chargers loss. 49ers loss. And finally the Tennessee Titans. I mean, if the Titans are blowing away that division, maybe they rest their starters. But even then, I wouldn't even know if the Tennessee's second string would lose to the Texans.
So there's
basically 3 potentially winnable games: Jacksonville twice and the Jets once.
We're basically saying that if everything goes right, in our opinion, then they could be 3-14. That's if everything goes right.
Yeah.
And really, if you honestly think about it, that's really everything going wrong, because if you're going to be that bad, you may as well just win 1 game. So I'm going to go under still.
Yeah, I'm saying under 1.5 wins for the Texans. Ugh. Wow.
And I would hate to be the person who gets picked first to go there. Oh my goodness. All right.
Yeah. So sorry, Texans. All right. So I think we're in agreement, right? Titans, Colts, Jags, Texans.
Yep. Okay. Same order.
Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come right back. And it's time finally for, as easy as the AFC South was, that's as hard as the NFC West is going to be. So I have a feeling that's going to be a little more complicated. So we'll take a little bit more time to kind of go through all that. So stick around. We'll be right back. NFC West rankings right after this on the Benchwarmers podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're sick with COVID-19 or think you might have it, take steps to help protect other people from getting sick. Stay home except to get medical care. Call the doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a cloth face covering to protect others. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Avoid sharing items with other people in your home. This includes things like towels and bedding. Be sure dishes are washed in hot water or the dishwasher before anyone else uses them. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz, and this is the Benchwarmers podcast, season 2, episode 17 in full effect. Time's flying by, racing through the show. You can go back and listen to the beginning of this show or any of the shows before this. iHeartRadio, Amazon, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all at the Benchwarmers podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or go to thebenchwarmers.com to find all of that information and more. It's pretty good articles, I might add, by Jose and myself. We talked a lot this show, some NFL news and notes. Larry Fitzgerald apparently is not playing. Clyde Edwards-Helaire sprains his ankle. KD and Draymond Green had to talk about, they rehashed some old problems. You can go back and listen to that. Kobe Bryant, happy birthday. We just got done ranking the AFC South. Jose and I, in a rare moment of serendipity, all agreed on the order: Titans, Colts, Jags, Texans. This next bit, though, I'm guessing that we're going to have a difference of opinion. We're going to rank the NFC West. And so just to give you some perspective, last season, the Seahawks were 12-4. The Rams were 10-6. The Cardinals were 8-8. And your San Francisco 49ers were 6-10. Jose, for the 2021 season, who do you think is going to be number one in the NFC West?
I'm trying to be objective here, and I don't see how an objective person would not be picking the Rams to win this division. As much as I love the 49ers, I mean, I guess you could make an argument for just about any team in this division, which is how good the division is. But they were a 10-win team last year with Jared Goff at quarterback. And Matthew Stafford offers an immediate, just an incredible upgrade at the position. And everyone else on the team is basically the same. They're bringing back an elite defense with two of the best defensive players in the game in Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Solid wide receivers with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. The loss of Cam Akers hurt. Hopefully Darrell Henderson gets back and being healthy. But if he is healthy, he should be should be at least serviceable in the backfield. And even beyond the division, I think the Rams probably have the strongest chance to challenge the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC for the Super Bowl. I just, as if they can stay healthy and get some of the right bounces, the sky's the limit for this team. I don't really see a lot of weaknesses or holes on the team outside of maybe the running game being downgraded a bit with Darrell Henderson, but still serviceable. So
I'm going to say something it might not make sense at first, but I picked the Seattle Seahawks to be first in this division. Okay. I think, I'm going to qualify that by saying I think the Rams are going to go deeper in the playoffs, but I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to win the division. Reason being is that, yes, the Rams I've been a Matt Stafford fan forever. I mean, he's got so much talent, and he's been on just such a bad team for so long that I think he's drastically underrated as a quarterback talent. But it is his first year in a new system and a new scheme that's pretty complex. I mean, Sean McVay is pretty intense, and he's coming off of it's been 12 years or so, 13 years that he's been somewhere else. And sure, we saw Tom Brady acclimate to the Buccaneers after 20 years in New England, but Tom Brady's Tom Brady. And
they were also 7-5 to start too, so.
Right. So that combined with the fact that Cam Akers went down and now Darrell Henderson injured his thumb, it sets up to have even more onus put on Matt Stafford as a passer. Whereas I think if they had their full complement of running backs, they'd be able to balance out that offensive scheme a bit better and maybe not put so much on Stafford's plate right away, because it's a new system. It's a brand new team. It's a whole new city. It's a whole new life. It's a different feel top to bottom than he's used to and has been used to for the last decade and a half or so. Now, granted, the defense for the Rams is much better, but Seattle they did a great job in re-signing Jamal Adams. He's happy and he's a monster when he's out there. They still have Bobby Wagner, and there's some other decent role players, but on offense, Russell Wilson is the reason why. Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson. He's one of the top 5, maybe top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the league. They have Chris Carson back. They have DK Metcalf, who is just a monster. Tyler Lockett's there. They signed Gerald Everett from the Rams as tight end. So I just think that their offense and their continuity on the Seahawks is going to carry them through to a better record that it is than the Rams. When I think once the Rams kind of get settled in and Stafford is comfortable, I think if that team's ceiling is much higher, I think, than the Seahawks. So, but I think at the end of the season, I think the Seahawks are going to have a better record, but the Rams are going to go farther.
I think I can buy all that stuff. I don't really have a lot of argument about what you said about the Rams. There is going to be a learning curve. I do think it's got to be easy to replace Jared Goff, though. I don't know, like no offense to Jared Goff, but I guess Tom Brady was replacing Jameis Winston. It's probably about equal, right? Jameis Winston. Actually, I don't even know who I would think is better. Okay, we're getting on a tangent here between Jameis Winston and Jared Goff. But either way, you're coming in, you're replacing Jared Goff. It shouldn't be too bad. But I see what you're saying about the Seahawks, and that's why I have them second. Because when you draft Russell Wilson, when you have Russell Wilson as your quarterback, you basically just sign yourself up for about 10 wins. Right. And in the playoffs. That's what he's shown throughout his career. They've missed the playoffs once since he's been there. Never won fewer than 9 games, averages nearly 11 wins per season. nothing that has happened this offseason would make me think that this trend will suddenly change. The 49ers and Cardinals are young and exciting teams, but you really hit on the word that I was looking for. The Seahawks offer a level of continuity and organizational stability that generally leads to regular season success. So that's why I'm picking the Seahawks to take second.
So third, I went with your San Francisco 49ers. I'm guessing that you did as well, but maybe not. The Niners, it's interesting because we talked a little earlier in the show about Trey Lance and how good he looked in the preseason. Jimmy Garoppolo is probably going to be their starter, like it or not. I think that's a good thing for Trey Lance. I think, the rookies talk about the speed of the game and how it's surprising to them because, you think about the fastest guys that were in college. Those guys are all starters now in the NFL. It's everybody. It's not just one or two guys you have to watch out for. Kyle Shanahan is going to do the most with a very eclectic group of talented players. Raheem Mostert, if he stays healthy, Deebo Samuel's there, Brandon Ayuk. They still, Mohamed Sanu, I guess, is there. But George Kittle, if he can stay healthy. And I think the most underrated player on the 49ers is Kyle Juszczyk at fullback. I love watching him play because he's like a Swiss Army knife. And on the other side of the ball, if Nick Bosa stays healthy, this team is going to be a force. And so that's why I think they're going to be third, just because of coaching and overall top to bottom talent and depth.
Yeah, the 49ers were my third team. It just felt like the 1 year removed from the Super Bowl last year, or Super Bowl appearance, just kind of felt like nothing could go right for that. They had injuries to everyone: Kittle, Deebo, Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas. Everyone was getting hurt. They still had a decent defense, but their offense was just garbage last year.
Yeah.
You could expect, I expect them to be, I know you're right. They're probably going to start Jimmy Garoppolo. I really hope that they don't, and they just go with Trey Lance. I don't think the drop-off would be that big, at least to start the season. And then the upside is just incredible for what we've seen. But I expect them to challenge for the division at worst, and then at best potentially contend to reach the Super Bowl again. There's no reason to think they can't get back to where they were 2 years ago if they can stay healthy.
Yeah, the 49ers seem like they always kind of have the Seahawks number, even when they were hurt. I don't know if it's just the coaching of Kyle Shanahan, but they always seem like they can just pull a fast one on the Seahawks and win those games when they probably shouldn't. Which leaves us with the Arizona Cardinals in fourth, and it's an honorable fourth, I guess, because this is the Cardinals would be the number one team in the NFC West, or NFC East rather, or possibly even the AFC South, like we talked about before. They're a good team. They're just not a great team. They went out and signed some free agents: J.J. Watt, AJ Green. There was someone else. They signed. Who am I missing? I can't remember.
James Conner.
James Conner's on there. Yep, he's the backup to Chase Edmonds, which I guess isn't that big of an addition. But Kyler Murray, it comes down to Kyler Murray. If he can take that next step forward in his quarterbacking evolution, I think this team has the potential for really great things. Cliff Kingsbury he's right there. He's tied to Kyler Murray. So as Kyler goes, so does Cliff. And DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green. If AJ Green stays healthy, that's a pretty potent passing attack. But banking on the fact that AJ Green's probably not going to be healthy. You're talking about Rondale Moore or Antoine Wesley or Keyshawn Johnson, not that one, but another one, as their wide receivers. Christian Kirk, I guess, is still there too. So, it just feels like they're missing something, and I'm not sure what it is, but it's just not there.
Well, I can tell you what they're missing. They're missing just kind of that certainty that what we were talking about when you look at the Rams, right? Hey, we know their defense is going to be great, right? All the other stuff's fine. We know their defense is going to be great.
Yeah.
We look at the Seahawks. We know Russell Wilson is going to be great because he always is. 49ers don't have that same kind of continuity or certainty, which is why they're at third. And you look at the Cardinals, outside of Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, it doesn't feel like anything's very certain there. And even Kyler Murray, I mean, you look at their offense last year, and it feels like they hit a bit of a wall during the second half of last season. During the first 8 games last year, they scored 30 or more points 6 times. In the final 8 games, they scored 30 or more only twice. Something happened last year at the end of the season, whether it was their offense getting tired, Kyler getting hit too much, or defenses getting smarter, that they just weren't the same team. And it feels as exciting as it is to see Kyler Murray run. Sometimes he needs to rely a little bit more on his arm than his legs, which is the case with a lot of these running quarterbacks. And at the end of the day, I see a team that really just doesn't have a lot of playmakers on offense or defense. So it's hard to really predict this big jump for them without having seen it before.
So the Cardinals last season were 8-8. So if I put that over under at 7.5 for this season.
I'm taking the over because I think there's a chance that all 4 of these teams make the playoffs because of the fact that 7 teams can get in. I think it's possible that all 4 of these teams make the playoffs.
I would take the over on that as well. Actually, I don't know what the official over-unders were.
Yeah, I have it here. The Rams,
okay.
Win total over-under 10.5.
I'll go over.
This is I'd go over too. This is Vegas Insider, by the way. 49ers were actually second somehow with 10.5 as well.
I feel like 10 is like right on the nose. I think I would go under. I think 10 is the number.
It's weird. I think I would go over, though my ranking probably would suggest not. But I think we're going to really have this is going to be a very strong division where you're going to see potentially 4 teams with winning records. So I'm going to say over.
Okay.
Seahawks 10.
I go over.
Yeah, I go over too. It's hard not to go over there. And then the Cardinals were 8.5.
Oh. Ooh. I liked mine better at 7.5. 8.5 is tough. I'm going to go under. I think 8. I think they win 8.
I think I'll go over because I think they win 9 and go like 9-7, or something like that, or 10 and. Oh, sorry. No, I'm sorry. That would be 9 and
8.
9 and 8.
Yeah.
And or something like that. Like I could see them going 9 and 8 or 10 and 7, and kind of either sneaking into the playoffs or challenging for that last spot, like they did last year, but falling short.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that all season too. The math, that's going to be 17 games is going to be tough. That's going to be tough to remember. But
it just we talked about how close this division is. Vegas agrees with us too, and then these guys get paid a lot of money to set lines. So I think that we're on to something here.
I agree. I think we're on to something with this show. And speaking of which, that is the end of this particular show. This has been season 2, episode 17. One more time, you can go and listen to all of our other shows, iHeartRadio, Amazon. You can go on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or thebenchwarmers.com, and go listen to everything. We appreciate feedback, positive, negative, or otherwise, reviews, ratings, things like that. So that's going to do it. So for Jose Ortiz, I am Lou Ruggieri, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.